Hey everybody, it's Dana and welcome to the Valentine's Day card series, day 4. So sorry about having a late video. I have not been feeling well. Let's get into the card though. Today I am using some products from My Favorite Things and I love this Sweet Plaid 6x6 paper pad. It has beautiful, absolutely stunning teal and fuchsia pink, light pink colors in it. So I thought we would use this paper as our inspiration today to make the cards. So before I get started, I do want to pick the right design paper for my card. So as I flip through this, there is going to be some paper that has more of a straight line to it instead of diagonal. And the reason I'm picking that is I don't want it to clash with this beautiful stencil. This stencil is called Say Anything Stencil, and it actually has a matching stamp set. So those cleaner lines, straight lines, are going to work better than, say, these diagonal lines. So as you can see, that might look a little bit busy compared to having more of a straight design. I could do just solid color, but I really wanted to have the two tones with this card today. So I am going to stick with the striped. I think that just looks a little bit cleaner with the speech bubbles. So I can go ahead and tear that off, and we're going to build up a different kind of card. I don't make a lot of Z-fold cards, but I thought for today's card I would. So I am going to bring in my little score buddy because we need to make some score lines on this. So this paper is 5.5 on the side and 8.5 across the top, 5.5 on the side. So I'm going to lay down the part that's going to give me like a standard A2 card size. So I go ahead and put that in there, and then I'm going to score like I normally would. I would score on my 4.25 line. That's going to give me my standard A2 card, which is 4.25 by 5.5. So I go ahead and make that crease line. Now to get the Z fold, I'm going to have to make 2 more creases. So I'm going to come over and crease at 2 1/8. That's going to be my next score line. That's going to make sure that when I score, I'm going to be able to just fold back that front piece. So those are my 2 score lines. The first one's going to be the 4.25, and my next score line is going to be 2 1/8. So as you can see, I can fold my card in half, gives me the standard A2 card. And then if I fold back that top panel, that's what makes the Z fold. So I can crease this down, and when I open it, you can see I have like a Z fold in my card. So we can go ahead and cut down a piece of paper for that front panel. Now I did go back to that paper. Remember I said I wanted to use this color combination in the lines. So I am cutting this piece of paper at 1 7/8 inches. And I'm going to trim it to 5.25. That's going to give me that little bit of border around my card. Now I also need a piece of white paper. And this paper I'm cutting down to 4 by 5.25. Now I'm going to place this down on my craft mat because this is when we're going to use that stencil. Don't worry, I'll have all the measurements listed below in case you guys want to replicate this card. So I bring in a stencil and I'm just trying to line it up as best as I can on that white piece of paper. I know I'm going to have some of the speech bubbles run off of the paper, and I like doing that because it gives me a design that looks like it's continuous. Now for the colors today, I'm sticking with colors that are going to match that paper pad. So I'm going to go in variations when I start laying down this ink. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab that raspberry ink, and I'm going to make some of these speech bubbles have a little bit of gradation between the 2 colors. So I'm first going to come in with the pink and kind of put that on the top of one. Next, I'm coming in with, I believe this is Splash ink, and I'm bringing that up from the bottom. I'm not trying to get those colors to marry up in the middle and make that third color. I just want to have those 2 colors in the speech bubble. I'm going to do 3 of these. So I'm going to go back and do the same exact thing. Add in that little bit, add in the paint, and I have that nice gradation. Now I'm going to come in and just do some solid color ones, just to keep the color combination rolling through the paper. But I thought it would be pretty if I did have some that was a gradient between the two colors. Now for this here, there are quite a few of the little speech bubbles. I didn't want to color all of them. So as you can see, I'm going to leave one of them not colored. I think just having this amount is a good amount, and then I can fill in that area with something else a little bit later. So I can pull back the stencil and look how pretty the gradient is. I love mixing these two colors together. And again, I'm going to put something in that little spot. Now I did have a little bit of that pink come through on my paper, so I just grabbed a sand eraser and I can just go ahead and brush that off. Now it's time for us to start adding in some sentiments. This stamp set is called All Kinds of Love, and I love that it has sentiment as well as some hearts in there. And I think this is going to look gorgeous with the Say Anything stencil. I believe these two are actually paired together to work together, so that makes it even better. And I have that little heart that I can fill in some areas a little bit later with that. But first, I want to pick up the sentiments. So there's longer speech bubbles here and smaller speech bubbles. So I'm just making sure I get the right ones that I want for my card. So for the one across the top, I'm going to use one of the longest of the sentiments because that fits that speech bubble well. And then I can really pick and choose for the other ones. So I'm just going to do 3 on this card, 3 little sentiments. And actually one of them is going to be totally hidden. So when you open up the card, you'll be able to see that little message tucked underneath the flat. So now I'm going to add one more to the bottom. And if you notice, I'm stamping where I have the gradients. So it's really going to kind of guide your eye into that gradient as well. Once I have them placed where I want, I can go ahead and close down my MISTI lid and go ahead and stamp these. Now I just want to make sure that top one is kind of more centered because, you know, once I stamp down, we're kind of done with this and we don't want to have to repeat it. So I picked that up with my MISTI lid and now I can go ahead and start stamping. I'm using VersaClair Nocturne ink for this. I really love this ink. It's become one of my favorite blacks in my room to do stamping. And then I can go ahead and put that on all of the sentiments and stamp down. Now look how pretty just that little pop of black gives those gradient speech bubbles. I think it looks so pretty instead of just doing the solid colors all the way around. So I don't know what happened, but I got a little smudge right here. I'm not sure what that's from. So guess what? We're going to hide that with one of the hearts. Thank God that we can hide up our mistakes, right? So I will go ahead and lay this down because obviously I didn't want to start all over with this. So remember I said I wanted to fill in some of those white pieces anywhere or the white areas. So this is perfect that I can just go ahead and use some hearts. So the heart is actually a solid stamp. So I do want to kind of condition it first with my finger and then I can go ahead and stamp down. Now I am repeating the colors that I've already used. I'm not going to change up any color. I want this card to really mimic the color that's in that plaid paper. So I will go around and make sure to add in some of the teal color as well as some of the pink. And again, it's going to fill up a lot of this, what I would think maybe in my head anyways, a little bit of dead space because I did not use that last speech bubble. I do make sure when I'm doing this is to run that design off the paper as well, just like my speech bubbles are ran off my paper. It just kind of makes your card look like it might have been continuously onto a piece of paper and you just trim down your paper instead. So I did flip my panel over so I can stamp on the bottom instead of having to adjust my stamp. So just flip that over, I can stamp that down, and now we have a nice gradient of those colors. Now we're going to set this aside and we're going to use this die. Die is called Pieces of My Heart, and as you can tell, it's going to cut out pieces. So I needed to have a heart sit nice behind it so my pieces would stay together. So I found this heart out of my Hero Arts Infinity Hearts, and it actually matched up perfectly. Now I am going to cut this out of this raspberry paper and white cardstock. It's going to allow me to have some dimension in this card without all of the pieces falling out. And again, I need some stability to this. So I can go ahead and die cut this out. And as you can see here, when I die cut it out, I did put some tape on the hearts that have the pieces that are going to come apart. I did put a little bit of tape on that in order to hold those in place while I try to get them onto the pink heart that I have. So I'm just going to line that piece back up. And once I get everything nice and tight, that's when I'm going to glue it down to the pink heart, to my solid piece, because this is going to give me the stability I need to use this card on the flap that we made. So I will add some liquid adhesive here, and then I can flip that over onto those pieces. And this is going to ensure that my first base, the first base of the pieces per se, are going to stay intact. So I can go ahead and flip this over, and you're really not going to see that pink piece until I turn over the card. Now I can take the tape away, and I know that those pieces are going to stay in place. And now I can come in and put on my next layer. As you can see, I still have that easy clear tape there, and that is holding all my pieces together while I stack them. Again, this is going to give that heart a lot of weight by including just those extra pieces of cardstock. I'm just making sure everything is in place. I'm going to press that down so that glue really gets into that paper. And then I can go ahead and use my tweezers and pull off that easy tape. So as you can see, I'm just going to grab my tweezers. I know everything is locked in place. I can remove that. And now I'm going to have a heart that's going to be a really sturdy heart, because we have now 3 layers on this. And I know that my pieces aren't going to fall apart. Now for my last layer, I'm just going to use pieces of this heart. I don't want to cover all the heart. So I am going to grab my liquid adhesive and place this down just on 3 sections of the heart. I think that really brings a lot of element to this piece without just having it so matchy-matchy. So I'll leave parts of this heart open to show me that gorgeous raspberry color paper. And then I'll also just mimic the lines and the design of the paper that we have on that flap. So remember, this piece here is going to go on the flap. So I'm really making sure to coordinate everything. And I like just having a couple of pieces of this done this way, because it does allow for it to make sure that this heart actually looks like pieces. So you're going to have like pieces of the pink and then pieces of the plaid. And as you can see, this looks gorgeous because I have that solid piece on the back. So now we can go ahead and put together our card. I'm going to first place in the panel that we stenciled, and I will place that onto the right side. And now I'm going to come in and put the piece on the flap. So remember, we cut out that plaid piece, but instead of using wet adhesive on this, I am just going to use a tape runner on this instead. This paper is a little bit thin, so I'd rather use a tape roller for this instead of the wet adhesive. Now, once I get that down, everything coordinates. In that little pink area, like I said, I can write a message to someone. Now we're going to bring in the heart, and look how pretty that looks. I really love adding just those little pieces of the plaid paper and bring that onto the heart. Now I only want to add adhesive to one side of this heart, because remember, I need to open up this card. If I put glue all over it, the card would not open. So I am just going to smooth that over just a tad bit, just to make sure I get half of the heart on there. And then I can go ahead and press down. Now look how pretty this card is. Now I'm not really worried about this piece in the back. It just looks like maybe the heart is outlined with white, and that's absolutely fine. If you're concerned about that, you can cover it up, but I'm really not concerned. And look how pretty that card looks when it stands. So not only are you giving them a great card, you're also giving them one that they can display. But I did feel like I wanted to add something else right to that heart. So I went ahead and I watercolored out a little image just to place on that heart. And the piece I decided to watercolor is from the Love My Gnomies. Isn't he cute? He's just a tiny little gnome, and I thought he would work perfectly on the card. And I did make sure to use the same color palette as the cardstock. I just matched that cardstock with some of my Daniel Smith paints. And this is going to work perfectly just to give me a little bit more of a visual to the front of the card, because even though I really love that heart, I felt I was still missing something there. So by using this tiny little gnome, he's going to work perfectly on the front of my card.